my name is Patrick Sist. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect at Flowable and very excited to give you a demo of the Flowable Enterprise Platform today. We're going to do this based on a specific use case from the financial industry. But before we dive into the demo, let me give you a brief overview of the Flowable platform as a whole. Flowable is all about standardizing and automating business workflows. We have three main principles. First one is flexibility. That means we do not provide out-of-the-box solution for a specific industry or a specific challenge. Instead, we provide a platform so that you as a company can create your own business workflows, really depending on your own requirements. We support a no-code, low-code approach. That means we can create those workflows end-to-end without needing to code necessarily. So we also enable business analysts or business modelers to have a very impactful role in the creation of business workflows. And then we really try to support open standards wherever we can, mainly BPMN, CMMN, and DMN, workflow standards used across the globe and in different industries to prevent the lock-in as good as we can. Those three pillars, flexibility, low-code, and openness, together make up the Flowable platform. This product suite includes 4 main products, and this really is oriented towards the life cycle of a workflow. If we create a new workflow, we're going to start off in Flowable Design, our no-code, low-code modeler, where we can use a drag-and-drop approach to define how our workflow should look and how it should be executed. After that, we want to test it and make sure that the workflow works as expected. And for that, we have Flowable Inspect, our tool for automated testing and debugging. And when everything works as expected, we of course want to put it into production and actually execute and interact with those workflows. And for that, we have Flowable Work, our workflow engine. If a lot of workflows are running on the Flowable platform, we want to keep an overview of everything that's going on. And for that, we have Flowable Control, our technical administrator cockpit that summarizes everything that's going on in Flowable. Today, we're going to see a very simple use case of a new credit card application. We're seeing how this is designed in Flowable Design from end to end with different model types, and afterwards also how it can be executed in Flowable Work. So let me switch over to Flowable Design. And here we can see the top level overview of our workflow based on the CMMN standard. And even without understanding the details of the standard, we can directly understand what's going on in that credit card application. You can see that we're going to start off with gathering some data from our applicant, then screening that data, and afterwards, based on the result of that data screening, we're going to decide whether we want to approve that credit card applicant or whether we want to decline it and move to the respective stage. Of course, there's more to it than we can see here right away, because behind each of those smaller boxes here, we have an additional process model that then defines the logic that is executed in each of those stages. So for the data screening, for example, we can see that we have a process model linked where we really try to model the logic that is necessary to screen the data and decide whether a credit card application should be approved or denied. For both the CMMN and the BPMN models, we have a lot of out-of-the-box component here on the left-hand side that we can directly drag and drop into our editor and can configure on the right-hand side how they should behave if they're part of an executable workflow. But as you can imagine, if we really want to build workflows end-to-end using a no-code, low-code approach, there needs to be more, because sometimes we might have human tasks where we also need to have UI elements or we need to make complex business decisions. That's why Flowable really supports a wide range of different models out of the box. One model is also the so-called decision table, where we can make business decisions based on different input data. And again, you can see that it's very easy to model such decisions based on this no-code and low-code approach. This also makes it much more maintainable than if we had everything in code. Even connections to external system, for example, over a REST endpoint, can be configured and maintained directly in Flowable Design. And we also provide possibilities to define the structure of our data that we're using in our workflows. And as I mentioned before, UI elements are also really important in our credit card application. We will need to gather some data from an applicant. And for that, we also have a drag and drop editor to create forms from scratch that also supports a wide range of different out-of-the-box components that can all be configured so that we can really say how a specific component should behave in an executable workflow. Here we're seeing a form where we fill in the credit card applicant information, but we can also create application-wide forms, so-called pages, where we get an overview of all the credit card applications that are currently in progress. That's something that can be very helpful for managers, for example. And you can see that this can really be configured according to your own requirements. So for this specific dashboard overview, I decided that I want to have some filtering possibilities to only view credit card applications in a specific stage. I can search through those credit card applications and then also have a table here where I can define what information I want to see right away. So let's see how this actually looks when we execute this workflow. So for that, I'm going to switch over to Flowable Work, which is now our end user interface that we provide out of the box. You can, of course, style this according to your own brand identity. For now, we're using the default UI, but there are many ways to customize this. Different employees will have different out-of-the-box features available here. Here you can see that I can, for example, get an overview of all the workflows that are currently running, where I have some involvement in, all the tasks that I have access to, but a manager might also be interesting to see some reports or dashboard across different workflows. What you can see on the right-hand side here is what we just modeled in Flowable Design. This dashboard where we very quickly get an overview of the different credit card applications that are currently in progress, and we can filter them accordingly. To start a new credit card application, there are many different ways. We can trigger this based on an event, on a REST request, an email, or even a WhatsApp message. In this demo, we're going to keep it simple and we're going to start a new workflow directly in this UI here. So let us start a new credit card application and let us go through this manually. Of course, usually this would be automated end-to-end in a straight-through processing manner, but for now in this demo, we're including some manual tasks. I'm going to create an application for Anna Hardecker, our example customer. And if I now start this credit card application, you can see that I am guided towards a case-specific view. So on the left-hand side here, I can now really get an overview of everything that is concerning this one workflow instance. In the overview, we can see that those stages, which we have seen before, data gathering, verification, data screening, approval, and account opening, those are the same stages that we have modeled in Flowable Design. So as a first step, we have to fill in the applicant information. And we immediately recognize the form that was previously shown in Flowable Design. You could, of course, now see me type all that in, or instead, we could use an integration to an external system, in our case, to Salesforce, where we already have information about that specific customer stored. So let me search for that information and we can immediately find that customer. We can also see the different data that we have already included in our external system. And what is still missing is the date of birth. So I'm going to fill that in. And then we can already move on to the next section. Here we can see how those forms can be quite sophisticated and complex and also interact dynamically with certain process data. So for example, if I choose as employment status full-time, then I can see that a new form field appears where I can fill in my employer. I'll choose some random data points and also say that we're applying for a platinum credit card with a credit limit of 10K. So now I'm going to submit that applicant data, which automatically brings us then to the next stage, where we will have to fill in and screen some further data. As a next step, we verify the address, again, by connecting to an external system for this address check. This would usually be automated, but here we can also see a different form that we have in Flowable Design so that I, as a human employee, can directly interact with this human task. So I'm going to confirm this, and in the next step, I will also put in a sample credit score, something that we would typically also get from an external system, of course. So if I submit that credit score, then we can see we successfully went through the data gathering and verification stage, we went through the data screening, and now we automatically made the business decision to approve this credit card application based on the decision table that we've seen before. So now we are in the approval and account opening stage. We have an overview of everything that we've done so far in this custom form. And you can imagine as a next step, we also have to generate a contract that then can be signed by the applicant to really complete this application. So if I now look at the open tasks, I can see that a new task was created for me. And we, of course, have a sophisticated task management system where we can also work with due dates and priorities and SLA reminders if we want to. Now, I will open up that task and I can see that here automatically we generated a PDF based on the data that we gathered in the workflow. For example, it includes all the data that we inserted in the first form. And we can also see that this is for a platinum credit card with a credit limit of 10K. This was based on a Word template, again, something we can just configure in Flowable Design, and we don't need to write any code for or maintain any dependencies to other libraries. I could now change this welcome letter if I wanted to, but this works for me. So I'm going to send out that welcome letter, which will then generate an email for our end customers so that they can actually complete the application process and they can sign the document. Flowable is not an e-signature tool, and we do not try to be. Instead, we are an orchestrator, orchestrating between different external systems. And an e-signature tool could be one of those external systems. In our example, we are using DocuSign. And in DocuSign, you can see that we automatically uploaded the PDF that we generated before. And here we can now sign with the signature of our example customer, and we can finish the respective process. Now, while we are doing that, the workflow in Flowable is paused and it's just waiting until the document is signed and can be downloaded to the Flowable workflow and the whole case can be completed. Now, this took a second until DocuSign completed the processing of the e-signature, but now that it did, we can switch back to Flowable work, and here we can see that we actually successfully went through all the different stages, and even the case as a whole is marked as completed. We can see all the data that was gathered during this workflow, and of course we also have a detailed business audit trail where we can see a log message of the most important steps that we walk through. Obviously, we also have a technical audit trail on top of that, where we have a much more detailed view of all the actions that were completed automatically or manually by a human. We can also have a look at the Documents tab here, where we can see a collection of all the documents that were involved in this workflow. For example, the welcome letter that was generated, but now, of course, also the signed contract that we imported directly from DocuSign. This is, of course, a very simplified use case that we used here to illustrate the capabilities of the Flowable platform. But we were still able to see how we can use the low-code and no-code tools in Flowable Design to create an end-to-end workflow and how we can then execute it in Flowable work. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. And if you have any further inquiries, then please reach out via email and we're very happy to go into more details. Thanks so much for watching and see you in the next video.